Welcome to the Young Money Podcast. My name is Diana Menezes.
And I'm Vince Galanco from wheninmanila.com. And yes, this is the Young Money Podcast where we talk about the young at heart and how they make their money, plus how much money they make. So, Diana, how much money are you making now?
Oh my God, it depends. No, I want to make it more sustainable now. No, my business is what it's called. It's show business.
Right, right. Well,
So yeah, I'm learning a lot through our show, and I want to thank you for that. Because if it was like personally my own thing that I would just like create on my own, I would go so like all over the place if not for you. So thank you, because this makes it very good to our listeners to understand how to make money. So thank you. Yeah,
oh,
I'm learning a lot, and let's do more,
well, thank you
maybe
as
through our
well. Yes,
guests.
I love hearing your insights and questions every time we have guests. I learn from
Makulit
your
ako eh.
questions and the things. Yes, yes, in a good way.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
so yeah, and speaking of being makulit and fun, one makulit fun thing I love doing. I'm a big geek. I love games, both
Yeah.
video games and board games. Now, I don't not a lot of people know, especially maybe the older people. Older people, you talk about board games, they think of Monopoly and Scrabble. That's it.
Uh-huh.
But did you know that board games is a multi-million dollar industry now? And there's
Wow.
thousands of board games that get released every year. And it's a huge industry of its own. It's entertaining for family, for friends, for parties. And what's cool about our next guest is he has the stores that bring in the board games here.
In the
Uh,
Philippines.
yeah, and
Wow.
some of the top games globally, some of the best games from all over the world are brought here. So let's bring on our guest. This is Hans Fernandez from Gaming Library. They have stores in Shangri-La Mall, in Juan Bonifacio BGC, in San pa ba? In Greenbelt, etc. And of course, they're online. I believe gaminglib.com. So let's bring him on. This is Hans from Gaming Library. How you doing, Hans?
Hey
Hi,
Vince.
Hans.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Hans. Hans, I gave a very brief intro. Maybe you could tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more about you and about Gaming Library.
Gaming Library, our vision is really to bring people together, but in an analog way. I know there's been a lot of talk with COVID and people being on screen always. Our vision is to actually bring people together. We want to see people smiling. We want to see people, talking and backstabbing each other in a safe environment, in a safe
Mm-hmm.
social
Gaming environment.
gaming
Okay.
experience. Yeah.
Competing in a game way.
Yeah. We do have three stores. We have Greenbelt, Shangri-La, and one Bonifacio BGC. As of this morning, we are looking to do our fourth, despite the pandemic in 2022. Hindi ko pa pwede i-reveal, but it's gonna be quite a revolutionary concept, I think. Um, and then we do have our a Shopee Mall. We have a Lazada Mall as well. And then we also have our own website. We have also partnered with Gcash to be in G Life. So you don't even need to go elsewhere. You just go into Gcash. You'll find gaming library inside Gcash. So
Wow,
it'll be very
nice.
convenient for you as well. Mhm.
That is awesome. And
Mhm.
so, Hans, how did you? Because board games people usually do for fun, but you did it both for fun and for business. How did that
Mhm.
happen?
Well, I really believe that to be in business, it's not just about money.
Mm.
Of course, money is one thing, right? But passion is something that will allow you to get through those days when things go rough, like when money is out. Parang ganun. And there will be days in any business, diba, that there will be struggles. So I am a big fan of putting uh, basically what I love to do. And if it impacts a lot of people, I want to be able to bring it to life. That's the one thing that I really enjoy. And I've faced struggles, like people said, but dati may joke pa na board games are board games. And it just made me strive even further to be able to prove to people that board games are not just gaming, but it's a cool social experience. Um, we started out with I started out with just 25,000. Basically my first salary paycheck. Uh, that went into the first shipment of ever of gaming library. And I I didn't mean it as a business at the start. I didn't craft a fancy business plan with PowerPoint slides and figures. It was just I wanted to bring more games into the Philippines. And then apparently a lot of the board game publishers and makers are not familiar with the Philippines as a country. So
Interesting.
yeah, so when they found out, they said, "Oh, well, why don't you retail and distribute for us?" So that's how it really got started. Um, I didn't do any numbers back then. Basically, my first 2 to 3 paychecks, it went into gaming library to start the business, basically. Mhm.
Uh, so what were you importing? You said your first paycheck, you were just importing games and to sell to friends, or were you? This was before you eventually reached out to the publishers and or they reached out to you. So
No,
how was that? Yeah.
my first paycheck. I actually just wanted to buy games for myself. Board games aren't,
Wow.
yeah, but board games aren't cheap. Most of the time, you'll find board games at about 500 to 700 pesos, and that's the affordable ones. Those are mostly the card games.
Facts.
There are games now that reach all the way unto 1,000 to 1,500 on minimum. And then there are games that we just brought in that cost about 20,000 pesos.
Wow.
Whoa.
But
Nice.
those are giant games that have a lot of miniatures, plastics, and cool, fancy metal coins and stuff. So the 25,000, actually, that was just for me to start my collection. And then the publishers, I remember it was Fantasy Flight Games before, who said, why don't you just do retail in the Philippines, since no one there buys from us. So that's how it got started. And
Amazing.
apparently that company, that company that first I first worked with, Asmodee Group, just yesterday they got sold for 2.85 billion euros. They got so a lot of people think there's no money in board games, but the biggest company in the world got sold for 2.8 billion euros, and that was just
Billion with a
confirmed last
B?
night. B B
B.
B, and that's euros,
Who
not
bought
not
them?
US
Disney?
dollar.
Are they part of Marvel now?
So
Wow.
yeah, it's really funny. And so when people say there's no money in board games, that video games are gonna kill it, no, contrary to popular belief, it's actually growing exponentially, despite the COVID situation.
Parang I can see that, no? Kasi like, for
Mhm,
example, you need to get together once in a while din naman. And I
mhm,
think games are a great social way of, interacting with each other without
mhm,
having so much effort on like
mhm,
social skills, because all you have to do is play, and
mhm,
then eventually you'll develop some sort of friendship or connection with people while you're doing
mhm,
it. And it's
mhm,
amazing, like, because of course we can't say like it's just pandemic, it's just online. People still sneak
mhm,
out into each other's house and do something fun. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and that's
mhm,
amazing. It's a huge industry. I didn't know. Wow.
So
mhm,
Hans,
2.5
for
billion.
non-gamers out there,
mhm.
what can you, because if you mention board games to people, they only think of Monopoly and Scrabble.
Yeah.
How would you like introduce board games to a non-gamer who's never heard of the newer board games?
So essentially, I would call it. We have a term in the industry. It's called modern designer board games. Essentially, think Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders, Cluedo, Uno, Jenga, and Scrabble. But think, what if you have creative artists and directors, just like in a movie, find a way to put it into our times. Basically, reinvent the wheel per se. Just the simple rolling of the die. What happens after that? and then they put their own creative spin to it. So, for example, for Cluedo, it has evolved into escape room experiences that you can do at your home. There are also games where you can be a detective. Now, instead of just being contained into the board game in Cluedo, you're actually gonna find real life evidence on the web to look for clues. You go to a website and then you try to solve the mystery inside that game. So that's how Cluedo evolved throughout the years. And now we just brought in a game. It's called Detective. It's the the one of the designers there is from Poland. He's a math genius. He even founded this website where the game evolves over time, and that's one of the aspects of board games. So essentially, we want to be able to give you guys a unique experience, whether you want, for example, I know a lot of people are into Risk or war games. Kumbaga, they try to narrate or have or they try to have different experiences. Like Dungeons and Dragons is one. It's becoming a thing with Vin Diesel and all of these celebrities in the US running role playing games. So these are essentially tabletop experiences where you gather in the table and you get into this whole experience together as a group. And that's one how I would introduce board gaming in general. Um, and so far, it's actually gotten a lot easier for games. There are games now that can have educational benefits to it. There's a game Acquire that teaches mergers and acquisitions in the stock market.
There's a
So a lot
game
of
for that.
yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yes, and I don't know if people know this author Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a famous
Yeah.
book, right? He designed a game called Cash Flow 101, which
Yeah.
is essentially you get to experience his book in a board game, because
Mhm.
he believes that reading is one thing, you need the theories, but to actually experience it is a different teacher, diba, basically. And the goal is for people to be able to have that simulated experience in a safe environment, because most people they don't venture into business because a lot of people are afraid of failing, diba? And unfortunately not all of us are are blessed with a financial safety net. So games as a way give you this exercise, give you this opportunity to try out theories and see if it works, and you can apply it in real life. Parang ganun.
So, what are
Nice.
some good games for starters, for beginners to try
Mhm.
out?
So the first one that I would really recommend, and it's gotten a lot of traction ever since the pandemic, is the game called Pandemic. uh, essentially, for, it's a game where
Was this made during the pandemic, or is this an
no,
older
no,
game?
no. It's very old. It's a very well.
Oh,
It's a 10-year-old game for sure.
ang galing.
Yeah, and the goal of the game is there are four different viruses ravaging the world. You have to
Oh,
work
wow.
together as the World Health Organization. Some player will play as a scientist, some player will play as the pilot, and your goal is to contain the virus. So you'll experience them there making hard decisions like we can't contain it in Asia anymore. Should we give it up and block off Asia from the rest of the world? May mga ganong challenges with the game, and I think that's one of the games that grew a lot, and that's
Ang
how
galing.
this and incidentally the game the design the owner of the game is also the same company that got bought for 2.8 billion euros last night.
Okay.
Yeah. Another one.
Is that the one? Embracer Group.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
I think Embracer Group is from Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
They're venture capitalists. They're not gamers. A lot of them, the machinery behind the board game industry, while you have a lot of passionate people inside of it, there are still venture capitalists, and there are still a lot of financial savvy people at the
Mm-hmm.
back end. So another one that I would really recommend is a game called Just One. Essentially, the goal of the game is to get to know all of the people you're playing with.
Mm.
There is a clue that you guys need to guess. We call it the modern Pinoy henyo. Um, and uh, everyone would just need to give one word as one clue so that one person can guess the secret word. The twist to the game is if you guys have the same clue, you guys get erased. You don't show the clue. So that's the twist to the game. So the goal is you want to be able to understand the way that other people are thinking, and then you complement each other. So for example, if the clue is Spider-Man, one player would say Toby, the other would say Andrew, the last player would say Tom. Parang
Uh-huh.
that's how they would complement each other that way. So that's another game, just one. And then the last game that I would really recommend is called The Mind. It's very easy. You guys have you guys just have cards. The goal of
Mm.
the game is to arrange the cards in order from 1 to 100. But once there is something, once you put a card that is ahead of another player's card, you lose the round. So you guys would
Mm.
have to wait each other and feel each other out. Should I go this round? Should I wait for another person? If I have like 15, do I wait until 13, 14 comes
So
out?
you can't
Or
talk
you
in the
can't
game.
talk. Yeah, you can't
Okay.
talk. The game is called The Mind is because you go through a series of challenges, and the goal is you have this mind sync. You develop this mind read with each other as you go through challenges. You
That's
better
cool.
understand each other. A lot of
Uh-huh.
players play it a lot of companies play it as a corporate bonding,
Team building.
team building experience, because most of the time communication between departments is a big problem. They have this they always claim we want to break the silo mentality where if I'm in finance, I only point out problems. I don't care how other people would fix them. These games, they offer a way for people to talk, engage, to break down these walls, and that thinking, and you now have concern for another person because you have to go at it as a group. So most
Mm.
these are the top three games. Most of them are very cooperative because that's been one of our biggest key outlets. We want games to be educational. We want games to be a good bonding experience. And of course, when it comes to the money, the corporate stuff is the big money, right?
How many players do you need per game? Like for just one, for Pandemic, and for the Mind?
Pandemic, you can play solo. Actually, so
Wow.
so if you love a challenge, you can play it solo. But most of the time, the
Okay.
spot is about 3 to 4 players
I
for
see.
most games. For competitive gaming, there are a lot of people that also engage in that, where it's just one versus one. And
Mm.
sometimes the games become, as long as you don't score, I will win. But then in the end, nobody wins. Diba? It's just like a price war where people fight each other to the death, and then no one earns any money, and then no one wins. So that's why I would say 3 to 4 people would be the sweet spot.
Nice.
So, Hans, can you give us back to the business side of things?
Mhm.
Can you give us some how is the board gaming industry here as far as, I mean, how's business? How did you
Mhm.
turn this passion into a business, and how's it doing?
So, um, I was pretty fortunate enough that I think 10 years ago, 11 years ago, sorry, 11 years ago, that's when I started. Forums and social media were just starting out.
Mm.
Um, uh, I was one of those people who would always visit forums simply because of I love basketball, and the thing then back then was to talk with other like-minded people was through forums. I got to know that there was a community of board gamers that also converse through forums, and then Facebook just amplified that capability. So um, I started with an online store. I got a very good deal with this platform called Shopify. I think a lot of people in this industry know. I still have a legacy um, package with them. So the idea with Shopify, it's a built-in platform. Their idea is to grow people who are entrepreneurs, but who don't have a lot of time, who don't have a lot of manpower and assets, because hiring people is quite expensive. Um, so I remember it distinctly. They had when I was subscribing to build a website, they had this contact form to say if you want a custom made um, package for you, send them a proposal. So I sent them a proposal, um, and they came back to me and say, "Oh, really want your, we really appreciate your passion. You're in the Philippines. It's not a big market, so we'll definitely help you. So here's the package." So the thing is, as long as I don't upgrade, that package is super sweet. Like I get 0% transaction fees. I only pay once a year.
Wow.
Um, I get all of the advanced features, but I only pay like 30% of the cost. Um, and
I like how you're
um,
whispering, like no one can hear you. Well, but for our listeners, at
Can we
least you
do
know
that
that's a
too?
legit industry secret. That he's just he has to whisper it. But yeah, go ahead.
sorry, but but yeah, so that's one of the things that really allowed gaming library to be to get to where it is. I was researching all of these retail experiences in the US and in Canada, and then I was looking at blogs pa nun, wala pang YouTube, um, on how people really were able to do their own startup companies, and from there, the best thing about it I learned really early is it's free to ask,
Facts.
but as long as you ask nicely and respectfully. So that deal I got with Shopify is one of the best deals I've ever done. I still keep it to this date. I have other businesses that I have put up with websites as well, especially with the pandemic, and I can no longer get that deal simply because Shopify can't give it to me anymore. And um, that's been one of the key aspects. Read a lot, like really read a lot. A lot of things don't get mentioned on vlogs and on YouTube because most of the time they're being condensed. And in reading, you get to see people who have different experiences, and most of the time the people who like to write are a bit on the experience side of things, like aka they're a bit older. So they've done a lot more. So and then try to open your mind, because one of the things that I've done is I didn't listen first to business people here in the Philippines. I listened to people who have done business in the US and in Canada, simply because for at least for my industry, board games was almost non-existent in the Philippines. Everywhere that I've talked to, people would say, "Oh, board games, low margin, bulky shipment, and then high price." So parang like if you put that, they have this thing called a product quadrant, where they always look for products that have the highest value at the highest profit at the lowest price, because that's fit for the Philippines, right? But the thing about it is, what people don't understand is, if you're in that segment, everyone will be competing against you. In
Right.
board games, I found that no one wanted to compete with me. And so you have that first mover advantage. You have that niche to come in, and that's basically one of the key secrets that I've been able to do with gaming library. um, I went online first, and then I went physical stores afterwards. The thing with physical stores is we wanted to reach new people. There is a limit to how you can reach people online. despite the pandemic. The physical stores give a different, unique experience. Like you get to feel things, you get to see the components, play with the cards, meet people, right? Because that's the essence of the industry, and that's why we opened one store per year ever since 2017.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Ang
Okay.
So
galing.
yeah.
Diana, have you played any board games
Yeah,
ever?
but then, yeah, I did. But
What games do
I
you
would say
remember?
that I remember, well, the traditional ones, and I also used to buy, but I'm not sure if it falls under the category of board games. I have tons of it at home. Those drinking games,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Do you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Human, what is it?
Cards Against Humanity.
Cards Against Humanity. I have each
Oh,
color of it. Yeah, like all of those. Oh my God, I had my face now. And then I have other stuff. Like I used to love finding places like gaming library, but I wasn't aware na ang dami pa pala. Alam mo yun? And I used to go talaga and then I search. Ano pwede dito pang alak before? Kasi before I drink, now I don't. So then eventually I was like, okay, everything turned so digital, so I didn't look for it anymore. But now I'm like, this is so interesting. I want to go back.
so now you've moved on to the stock market games that Hans was talking about.
A
One
little
you can
bit.
learn also from.
Yeah, that would be great.
But yeah, I think Cards Against Humanity. I think that was, if not one of the best-selling games in the world or something. I think that was also my first board game, other than the Monopoly, Scrabble, old
Yeah.
game.
Mhm.
I think that was one of my first. Is that one of the top sellers, Hans, in
Yeah,
globally?
it used to be. If I remember right, it even got featured on Ellen. The guys behind Cards Against Humanity in the board game industry world aren't really the best designers, but they're the
Okay.
best marketers. Like they did it really well.
Uh-huh.
And they were one of the first games to use this platform called Kickstarter.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a new platform where you're basically crowdfunding games,
Mm-hmm.
and because you're doing crowdfunding, you skip all of these intermediaries. Like you don't need to go through a distributor, you don't need to go to retailers, and you get that marketing engine, simply because Amazon was pouring a lot of money into the website to reach a lot of people. Diba? So you try to ride that wave as well. So they were one of the first companies that really utilized that platform. So that's one other thing that I think your listeners would can really learn from. Look for platforms that people are investing into, and you try to ride that wave as much as you can, because you they will have this halo effect that will definitely benefit you or your own business as well. Mhm.
So how about here in the Philippines? What are some of your best-selling board games?
Mhm. So the best-selling board game that we have is Just One Philippines. Basically, we took the best party game in 2020, and we added a local Filipino culture into it. So instead of just plain English words, we have people that can relate to. Like for example, we have Jollibee, and then you have to match Jollibee with a lot of other things. We have Filipino celebrities as well in there. We have landmarks that people can relate to as well. And the beauty of it is when you try to add that local Filipino culture into it, the possibilities of clues become really wide open.
Mm.
And it's just a lot of fun. So that's one. Just One Philippines. I think it retails for about 999 pesos only. Um, the next one, that's the best selling game, is called Exploding Kittens.
I
Uh,
have
ex-
that.
yes. So Exploding Kittens, it was based on a web comic by Oatmeal Group, and the game is essentially Russian roulette, and then you add cats into it.
So mean, no? But sure. I know.
No cats are harmed in this
No
game,
cats
so
are
it's all
harmed
good.
in that game. Yeah, and they came out with a new version this year. It's called the Recipes for Disaster. Um, the idea is they added some of their best expansions into the base game, so they now have the what's that thing called for animals so that they stop scratching themselves? The cone of shame.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
Yeah, the
color.
cone, the cone, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we just call the cone, I think. Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
they added a few other components into it. It's now in a new format that's we're currently sold out. We brought in a lot of copies in 1 month. We're sold out, and it's not even Christmas yet. Um,
Wow.
the third one is called it's a trending game on TikTok. Uh, 2 million views on TikTok right now. The game is very simple. It's just called Taco Cat Go Cheese Pizza.
Taco?
Uh, Taco Cat Goat
Uh-huh.
Cheese Pizza. No, again, no cats were harmed in this game. But
Uh-huh.
the goal of the game is basically you just put down a card and then you need to keep repeating the sequence with your other friends. So, for example, I say taco, Vince will say cat, Diana would say
Cheese.
Goat.
cheese,
No.
go,
Yeah.
goat, and then
Goat.
paulit-ulit lang siya, taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. If the card
Mm-hmm.
matches, we have to slap the table. The last person to slap the table would need to get all of the cards back. Um, and the first one to run out of cards wins the game. Of course, there are special cards like you have to act like a monkey, you have to act like a unicorn or something like that.
I'm
Um,
fine.
but it's trending on TikTok, 2 million views. On worldwide, they have sold 2 million copies in 1 year. In the
Wow.
Philippines, we have sold 1,000.
It
So
it does sound like you were explaining earlier that these are modern designer
designer,
games. It
yes.
does sound like that because that sounds like an old. It's a game that I used to play just with poker cards,
Mhm.
where you put down the cards in order: ace, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, ten, jack, queen, king, and
Mhm.
if the card is placed down is the same card you read out loud, you say out loud, you have to slap the table, you have to slap the deck,
Mhm. Yep.
and the last person to slap the deck, they get all those cards, and the person who runs out of cards in their hand is the winner. The person with cards in their hands, the loser.
Lose.
So it sounds very familiar to that, but with a modern and cool,
Twist.
Mhm.
unique
Twist.
twist. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The twist to that game is they tapped certain linguists and they found that the rhythm of the words by starting with taco and then
They
ending
tap
with
linguist. Oh
yeah
my
yeah
god, that's so
so,
in depth.
and then the last one is pizza. You would always get into that rhythm. That
Yeah, it's actually
rhythm
easy to
of
Ah.
remember. It's
yes,
easy to
it's
say.
super easy to
It
remember.
flows off the tongue.
Yeah.
Taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. It really,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Oh my
then
god,
Taco
that's
cheese
so
pizza.
deep. They got linguists.
I'm sure
yes.
they no, I can imagine no, that everything is really well thought of. Like they probably
Yeah,
do a lot of research.
that
Mhm.
like that's not something I would ever think of. Like, oh, we need to get hire a linguist to perfect this line so that
I'm
it'll
sure
be a
even
key frame.
psychologists, no, probably
Yeah.
because
Right?
they have
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
it's a
Man.
neuro hacking thing.
Yeah. The
Right. Yeah, Diana's into that.
Yeah, I'm
the
studying neuroscience. Yeah.
the person who designed the mind game where you have to arrange cards in
Ah,
order without
yeah, the
talking,
mind game.
the designer is a microbiologist. So he's a
Amazing.
scientist guy who designed these games. And
I'm
most of the time,
definitely
right,
getting that one.
uh, and most of the time these games they're really done by professors or uh, key opinion leaders in their field, and they try to apply that in terms of their philosophies and their learning into that experience as well. So that's why when people ask us, oh, why is this game so expensive compared to toys? That's because there's a lot of creative thought process that went into these games.
Professionals.
And usually some people would say, oh, we can just print the card and stuff like that, right? But most
It's
of
not the same.
it's not the same. The cards are different. The
Correct.
artwork is there. They tap a lot of cool designers just to design the box together with the artwork and everything, so that they can give you a great item.
Yeah.
So those are the top three, and in fact, the last one, there's a new version. They call it Taco Hat Cake Gift Pizza.
Okay.
Wow.
They have different
So
versions of it
different
already.
versions, yeah. And there's another one coming out next year. It's really fun. I remember in for us, we printed 2,000 copies. It was the biggest print run we've ever done for one singular game. And despite the pandemic, it's doing really well. We just packed during last 12/12. Someone bought 20 pieces in one go, and they're using it as a gift for the whole family.
Yeah, they sound like great gifts and great
I was gonna say giveaways also
giveaways,
for
or
gift
and
Christmas.
I feel like they fit any situation. So family, it's great family bonding,
Mhm.
friends, parties. I feel like any game can be a drinking game, especially if you're
Yeah.
with Diana.
Mhm.
Oh, not anymore because I
No,
don't
back in
drink.
the day, back the old
Back in the
Diana, the
days.
old Diana.
Yeah.
Now you can take shots of vitamins or
Tea.
something.
Yeah. Go
Um,
push.
so Hans, what are, because you did mention party games? Are there genres of games, and how would someone know what type of game they should get if they've never bought games before? So
Um,
first, what types of games are there?
so there are a lot of games because the industry has evolved throughout the years. When I first started, there were just Euro games, essentially games designed from Europe. And then we have what we call the Ameri trash games, which is games designed in America. And the reason why it's called trash is because it's loud. The idea is that people would shout, people would laugh all together. The Europeans, you see their culture, they're very quiet. They want to make things as efficient as possible. And that's because uh, most of the designers are from Germany. So so
Mm.
so they
Human
have that way
engineering.
of thinking. And then we have what we call the party games. Most of the best party games come from France. For example, just one, the one that we printed, was done by a French, yes, that one, by a French publisher. And it goes to show with France, they love games, and especially they drink wine with games, diba? So that's one other aspect that a lot of
Tagalog
people
siya.
do. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Galing.
Taglish. We add
Taglish.
do Taglish, yes. Um, and then there are games for business and strategy. These are games where you try to build a civilization and then you beat on other people. These are games where you learn about. There is a game called Power Grid where you learn about running an electric distribution business. Essentially, Meralco, the board game. And then there are also games that are called the thematic experience games. Essentially, these are games that tell a story. You go through a campaign together with your friends. Some examples would be Game of Thrones, where you get to play one house. And you either get to play as the Starks, you get to play the Lannisters, ganun. And then there's also Lord of the Rings, where you get to play as Bilbo Baggins or whoever, in that experience. So if you guys are looking for to get started, there is also a category called family/gateway games. Essentially, they're called that because they're designed to hook you into the world of gaming. They're very easy. Um, Rule book is just one page, 1 to 2 pages usually, and most of the time you can just watch the video online on how to play. They're usually played in 20 minutes or less. They give you that experience where, I could have always done better to beat another person, and then that's how
Mm.
they get to hook you by speaking to your competitive nature. Or there are games also that are in that same genre where you have to help each other, just like the one that I mentioned called Pandemic. And your goal is the game will beat you. It's designed that you lose 7 out of 10 times. But because the idea there is the game will challenge you as a group, and then you get to repeat it over and over again. And from there, that's how you get started, and then you start exploring the world of board games, depending on your taste. Yeah.
I'm going over all your games here.
So so if real quickly, because we're short on time, before I
Yeah.
ask you to show us the money. So if I were a new gamer, what game should I get? Should I, and I assume there's people at the stores who can help find a game fit for me, but just for now, over, if they're listening here, if they're a new gamer, I mean, how do they find out what a good first game should be?
First, you need to understand the objective that you want out of the game, right? Do you want a game that you can play with a lot of people? Do you want a game there where you get to learn something, or do you want a game to be able to bond with a certain individual, whether it's parents, kids, or your significant other? Once you do that, it will be very easy. If, for example, you want to have a good time with a lot of people, you go with just one. Or if you want a game where you get to learn something, whether it be it business or strategy or team building, I think you should go with either this game called Ticket to Ride or Pandemic. Ticket to Ride is a game where you connect trains all across Europe. Um, and then the last one is, if you want to play with your significant other, you want to have that bonding experience. The Mind is a good game. And then there's also Just One, if, for example, you're bonding as a family. So the best recommendation, when we do recommend, and I think that's what separates our store compared to, for example, the generic board game store, is when people ask us what's the best for me, we always ask you what's your main goal or objective. Because if you don't have that main goal, then we might as well just give you anything, right?
Great,
I
great.
found
So
another. Go
go,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Dan.
found another game that I have, but you also sell it.
Yes,
Dixit.
Dixit. Yeah,
Dixit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
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 Awesome. So Hans, part of the show we ask people to show me the money. So
Mhm.
business wise, like how can someone earn from this, from board games, other than selling their giant company for billions? Uh, for the smaller people, how can they earn from board games?
So there are two ways that you can earn the money. The first one is if you want to design a game. So, for example, there is a game called Politrix. It was locally designed. The game is essentially, you run as an aspiring presidential candidate of the Philippines, and you try to win against others. So that's one field that you can go into, board game designing. That Politrix, we've sold roughly about 4,000 copies already. So, and board game designers, they operate on royalty. For every copy sold, they get a percentage. So think of it as passive income in the long run.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. There's also a huge demand for artists in the board game industry. There are basically board game covers become artworks, and then you get to put your own signature. That's another aspect that you can get into. The last one on the business side is, well, you get to put up your store. Um, Sige, exclusive ko na. We're putting up a board game experience store in 2022. We're converting a cinema into a board game community hub. And
Wow.
the idea there is we will not earn from selling you board games. We're gonna earn from selling you a movie experience, but in a board game format. So
Wow.
you get to buy the ticket, you get to come in, you get to experience an event, whether it's a murder mystery party, whether it's a Dungeons and Dragons role play event with your friends, or if you just want to play competitive gaming, or if you want to play, or if you want to have a good time with family, or if you want to have a date, pwede doon. We'll have games all for that sort of genre. We call it the Netflix model, where you just pay a small fee. You come in and you get to experience as much as you want in terms of content, because board games are essentially content at the end of the day, and we can earn in different forms of revenue on that aspect. Yeah.
I want to
Wow.
ask you details about that, but I know it's new.
We'll wait for it. 2022.
I'm
2022.
excited
Yeah.
for that,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
That sounds
Well,
like
I'm
a
gonna
fun
get
experience. I feel
Mhm.
like that's what's
super.
lacking in the Philippines. Are those unique experiences? Because
Yeah.
I feel like when you want to hang out with friends, when you want to do something, it's pretty much go to the mall. That's it,
That's it.
Correct.
Mhm.
right?
Or go to
In the
that
states,
certain
there's so
club
many.
that everybody goes to.
There's miniature golf. There's go karting.
Correct.
There's so many different things you can do. But here in the Philippines, I feel like it's the mall. That's it.
It's a
So
mall.
so
Yeah.
I feel like experiences like that are really needed.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So D, we're totally over time. So D,
Yeah,
maybe you could.
yeah, it is so entertaining, Hans. Thank you so much. And then for everyone listening, well, here's Hans, and if you want to be just like him, he is the best person you can look for in the Philippines for gaming and of course board gaming. He started at 25,000 pesos lang, and he was able to expand this into something that will be revolutionary next year. So abangan natin yun in 2022. One of the key points that I got from Hans is choose your passion. And I will rephrase it that way over money, because money will eventually really flourish once you can focus on your passion and impacting people and bring to life your idea. And then what else? Board games, guys, if you want to make a business out of it, you can find board games from 500 pesos to up to 25,000 pesos. And definitely you can make your own way of like entertaining people with it. Well, he also gave us the best games that you want for now. What is Yeah, Hans, thank you. And I'm really excited also to I myself want to take some games as I'm going to the US on Monday. I want to look for some games I can do for bonding with families, and I think it's a great thing to do, especially during the pandemic. I really cannot hear you guys right now because my internet went off, so I'm gonna let Vince do the closing, and Diana
Okay.
Menezes here.
So Hans,
And
give us one
also,
last
wait,
tip.
Vince,
Oh,
can you
wait.
ask him for the last piece of advice since
Yes.
I'm kind of off here?
Okay, Hans. Last piece of advice for our listeners.
Last piece of advice is fuel your passion. But after fueling your passion, look for the first crazy follower to help you make that passion come true. Um, don't worry about the money at the start, but be prepared. So that would be my last piece of advice for you. And then you'll find your own niche eventually.
Okay, Hans. And how can people find you or gaming library, if in case
Oh,
they want to
so
buy games or get more advice from you or ask you what game you recommend for them?
okay. We're very active on Facebook and on YouTube. We have a show called G Live where we stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday in different show formats. Where we do it on our Facebook page on Gaming Library, but we also have a YouTube channel called G Live Game Night. We have a community group where you can just ask not just me but also other like-minded individuals about board gaming. It's also called G Live Game Night on Facebook. On Instagram, our handle is at Gaming Live. And then if people want to reach out to me, I'm also very active on Instagram at a show of hands. ASHOWHANS. Yeah. So that's how you get to reach out to me. I'm always open to talking about ideas and meeting other like-minded individuals as well.
Okay, there you go.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys, so much. I'm a huge geek, and I think there's a little geekiness in Diana. So I think that's why
Well,
the show went
yeah.
on a little bit long. Uh, so yeah, so thank you so much to Hans and Gaming Library. If you guys do want some games, do check them out. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. On behalf of Hans, Gaming Library, I'm Vince Galanco from wheninmanila.com.
And I'm Diana Menezes.
And
Thank
this
you for
was the Young Money Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.